is up, guys? How are you all doing? I'm doing great, thanks for asking. And what we are here with a quick video where I'm talking about one thing and one thing only, and that is this war of mine. And surprisingly, I've played a ton of it. I mean, I wasn't expecting to play this game this much because I didn't expect it to be this good. However, I heard about it, I did my research, I saw a few gameplay trailers and whatnot, and I was in love immediately, because this game is absolutely brilliant. I think it deserves all the recognition that it can get because it is well executed, it's a well made game, it's high quality, and it's a very unique concept that I haven't come across before. So I would urge you guys to watch this video right to the end and see my full in-depth review so that you can make your mind up about the game, because it's definitely high quality. I mean, for me personally, this game is probably one of the best games I've played in the past few years, and I know that's a bold statement because there have been some great games in the past few years. However, very rarely do you get a game which has such power and such presence like this one, and they come few and far between, so when it does happen, it's quite exciting. But anyways, let's get into the review itself. This war of mine, what is it about? It's this story where you follow three characters in this war-torn country. There's civil war going on. So for example, it's the militia or the rebels or kind of insurgents or whatever versus the police or the government or the military, something like that, fighting amongst themselves. It's a civil war, and you are three people trapped inside the city while the war is raging on around you. And that's a very unique concept because you don't follow soldiers. These characters that you follow are not soldiers, they're just normal civilians. They don't have access to huge supplies or weapons and this and that. They don't have any backing. It's a mere three characters working together to survive. It is a survival game. It's not a zombie survival game or horror game. It's just pure survival. There's a lot of strategy involved. There's a lot of intricacies involved. I'll get to that later on in the video. I was actually blown away as to the amount of detail that went into this game. Not only visually, because visually it's stunning, but also with the intricacies like the crafting system and the crafting mechanics and the resources and the pooling them together and using them wisely and the strategizing. It's actually executed very, very well. But the game, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Like I said, I don't really have a game in mind which is identical to this one because it's a very unique concept and I absolutely adore things like that. I love indie games such as this which do something very different. I can give you an example such as Limbo. Limbo is the only game I can think of that is somewhat closer to this war of mine. It is a view from the side rather than an FPS view or over the top view, so it's a strategy game but you look from the side on and everything is split halfway and you can see it from a side profile, which is amazing. The artwork, the visuals, the textures and whatnot, I love it. It's kind of like this sketchy drawing with this gloomy kind of gritty feel, and it's like a Quentin Tarantino movie but in a dark setting in a video game world, and I love it. I think that crossover is brilliant and it works really well. But the game that I can compare it to in a similar fashion is Limbo. If you guys play that game, that's again a very cool, unique, original with puzzles and whatnot, and it's a side profile and the artistic nature of it is very, very powerful and it looks very different. Another game that's kind of similar to it is Valiant Hearts. Again, that has a huge kind of puzzle element, and again it's from the side view and you have to control the character and move him about the world and kind of solve puzzles and think your way through a certain situation, and you have to strategize and whatnot. So again, that is also very similar in this concept. However, this war of mine kind of elevates it to a new level because it adds a crafting mechanic. There's huge amounts of strategy and planning involved. So just on those fronts alone, this game is brilliant. I mean, it's not perfect, but it does a lot of things very, very well. In my opinion, there is only a couple of things that the developers missed or they could have changed or added something into the game which would have elevated it from a great game to one of those iconic games such as Heavy Rain or The Last of Us. You know, those games that really have a lasting feel and have a huge impact on the gaming industry or the gaming world. I think it could have been one of those games, but it missed the mark just by a little bit. And it's a real shame because, like I said, the game is executed in an incredible way and it's done amazingly, and it's a real shame. The gameplay. Now, the gameplay is actually very smooth, it's very solid. You have three characters which are randomly generated in the beginning, and you have to survive. You have to survive for as long as possible. Just like the game, The Forest, you have to survive for a certain amount of days, so the longer you survive, the better. But anyways, like I said, you get three randomly generated characters. You cannot choose them, they are randomly given to you. Each of them has a special power or special trait or special ability that they can do. For example, one of the characters is good at fighting, the other is a great cook. Some of them can sneak very well, one of them has great bartering skills because there is a trading system in there as well, which I will mention later on, which again just adds a little bit of dynamic elements where you don't know what you're going to get, you can't predict it, and each character has its own abilities, so you have to use them in the right context to make the most of it. Again, it comes back to strategizing and planning. But anyways, once you get these characters in place, you have to use them to do certain things. You have to go looting and scavenging and maybe even stealing some supplies because you need to survive. And you survive by getting food and resources, and with the food obviously you use it to sustain your living and to keep people alive. So you need enough food for everybody. Doing certain activities takes its toll on people, so they get tired, they need to sleep and eat, so you need to replenish it. It's kind of like The Sims where you have to look after this character and make sure that they are well, they are healthy, both with their state of mind and their physical nature. Because if you have a person who is not hungry, they're full, and they don't have any injuries physically, but psychologically they're suffering because of something that they saw or something that they did, it impacts the game and what they can and can't do. So everything has a consequence, which again, I love the realism of it. So you can go around stealing, you can go around being a bandit, you can go around killing people. However, when you come home at the end of the night after looting and whatnot, you have to deal with that. You have to cope with that. You have to sit there by yourself and just imagine and remember the things that you did, and that impacts the psychology of the character, which is a huge element that most games miss. Again, Heavy Rain is a huge example, so is The Last of Us. There was a huge psychological human element in those games, which you don't see often. So with the resources that you pull together and that you collect and get, whether it be through bartering, so you can swap items that you have with other people that want to trade with you, you can steal things from other people, or you can go scavenging and looting. Once you get these supplies, you can create things such as an oven, a chair, or you can build defenses like boarding up windows and holes in your house, or you can craft weapons and tools and gadgets and things like that, such as radios or handguns or shotguns. And that is an incredibly cool feature. You have to find the right components and the right amount of components and put them together on the right tools with the right person and use them accordingly in the right situation. You have two separate crafting systems. One is for weapons and tools, like I said, and the other is for household items and repairs and whatnot. You can upgrade both of these workbenches to reduce the amount of resources required to make those items, or to make them more efficient in that sense, give you more options and more abilities to create new things and different items, which all have a part to play in the game. So how does the game work? Basically, you can't leave the house in the morning because there are snipers and there's war going on outside, and you're most likely to get shot. So you stay indoors and you can create things, you can sleep, you can eat, you can craft and whatnot, or you can just sit there, listen to the radio or read a book and let the time roll by. As soon as it hits around 8 PM, you have to select one of three options. You have three characters, remember. One of them is sent out to scavenge, and the other two you can control what they do. For example, you can set them to guard the house, or you can put them to sleep if they're tired. My recommendation is that you put people to sleep during the day and keep two people up at night as guards, because that way you can protect yourself and what you have, because there is a looting element. Remember, you can go out scavenging and looting and you can steal things, but people can also do that to you, so you have to safeguard what you have and your people. However, when you do go out to scavenge, you have to again plan and strategize and think carefully about what you're going to do. You can go to a new area which is filled with people that is highly dangerous, so you might want to take a weapon with you. However, if you take a weapon with you, the people that stay at home to guard the house and your resources, now they don't have a weapon to defend themselves if somebody comes knocking on their door trying to steal something. So again, it's about cost-benefit decision making. If I go with option A, I'm going to get this benefit, but I'm going to be lacking on this other front. However, if I go with option B, I'm going to get this benefit, however, I'm going to lose out on a certain opportunity. And you have to always have that at the forefront of your mind. You have to always plan and prepare for the worst and try to strategize and think your way through or out of a problem, which again is something I adore. Anyways, once you select the place that you're going to scavenge, you go out and you try to find resources, and you only have a certain space in your backpack. Every person has a different size backpack or different abilities, such as some people might be female, or they might be shorter or weaker, so they can carry less. So you also have to think about who you're going to send out to scavenge. Do you want to send out somebody who's tired and sleepy and hungry and wounded, or somebody who only has 8 places in their backpack? Or do you want to send out somebody who's got 12 places in their backpack, but somebody who is very loud and can't fight very well? It's all about decision making. But once you go to an area and you select it, you can go loot it, you can scavenge it, and you have to make your way back home before sunup. Because if you find yourself outside when the sun rises, then you're more likely to get shot or captured by the enemy. Because again, it's a civil war, everybody's shooting everybody, there's no care for human life, and this game represents that very well because there's a huge human element. For example, if somebody gets hurt, they're constantly thinking about possibly dying. If somebody goes out and kills somebody and steals their stuff, they come back home and they're worried about what they've done, and they get really depressed, and that depression sets in. Even if they're healthy in terms of they don't have any physical wounds, or they're not hungry so they're full, they get enough sleep, but because they're depressed about what they've done before, they operate very slowly, they move slowly, they don't have much motivation, and that impacts the gameplay and what they can do, which is something I've very rarely seen. The only time I've seen something similar is The Sims. The Sims, as you know, you control a character, they have likes and dislikes, and they have thoughts and theories and the way they behave and what they do and what they think, and that game takes that element, applies it to a civil war torn urban environment in a very human way. And those are all the positive things about the game. There are a few negative things. They're not that big of a deal in my opinion, but it's just a few things that I need to mention. The first things first is the actual starting of the game. I would have liked it personally if you could choose the characters that you want, so that you can choose a guy who's good at fighting, you could choose a guy who's good at cooking, you could choose a female who's good at bartering, or a female who's good at sneaking, and stuff like that. It would have been great if you could have an option of maybe 10 people, and you can choose 3 or 4 or however many you want, so maybe you could start off with 1. Those could be cool elements to add. Also, the hideout. You don't get to choose where you hide out. You don't get to choose the house that you stay in, or the location that you want to take over maybe. You can't go from place to place. You have to stick to this one environment. It's not like The Last of Us where you can scavenge and keep moving forward and into different areas. You have to stay within the city, and I get that that's what the game is about. But at the very least, I would have wanted something where you can choose your hideout. You can choose to pick a house with 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or a big mansion or a hotel or whatever. However, that is not the case here. We don't have that option, we don't have that luxury. We are given this huge house which has like 20 bedrooms, including room in the basement, and only 3 people occupy it, which doesn't make sense, and there's a lot of places that the enemies can come through, like the broken windows and the holes in the wall, and it's just an unnecessary risk. I personally would have liked it to choose a smaller house, or at least have the option to choose something in terms of the location that we can hide out in, but that is not available. Maybe they can add it later on in the game. I would like to go around the city in the beginning and maybe choose a location, and again, just like the game gives you, it has advantages and disadvantages. Choosing a bigger house means that you have more places to hide, but choosing a smaller house means that you're less visible and out of sight. However, if people do decide to raid you, you're more likely to get hurt or something like that. But again, it doesn't give you that option, which is probably where the game missed out most on, but that's not a huge deal, but it's something that could have made the game even better. Another point that I can make about making the game just a bit better is the placement of the items. Now, like we said earlier, you can craft certain things like couches and radios and chairs and beds and crafting tables and whatnot. You can make all those things, which is great, and then you can place them wherever you want in the house, such as if you made a distillery and you want to make moonshine, you can put it in the basement, nice and cool, or whatever, even though I don't think temperature affects it, which could have been a cool element for them to add. For example, if you want to collect water, you needed to place it outside the house rather than inside the house, because that kind of doesn't make sense. There is this item where you can collect water, you know, rainwater, you can purify it, filter it, and drink it, or use it for food preparation, which is a great idea. However, they didn't take it to that kind of uber realistic level where you have to place it outside. However, if you place it outside, it can get stolen or broken or whatever. You have to place it inside. And the point about the placement in the inside of the house is you can't choose where it goes exactly. For example, if you want to have 2 chairs in the kitchen environment and you want a radio in the middle of them, because that's actually quite natural, you want to have 2 chairs and people could sit down around the radio, listen to it and find out information or listen to music or whatever. You can't do that. You don't have the option to snap things into certain locations. For example, there's only like 2, maybe 3 places that you can place an item within a certain room. Of course, the size of the room affects this. However, when you have a medium-sized room or a large room, I would have wanted the option to maybe put 2 chairs, and in between those 2 chairs you can put a radio, or you can put however many items you want wherever you want, instead of the game choosing it for you. For example, I wanted to place an item away from a door in the middle of the room, but because the room was small, the item snapped to a certain location, and if you wanted to place it into that room, you had to put it where they wanted you to. You didn't have options to choose. So unlike The Sims or The Sims 4 or whatever, you can't choose where your items go in the house. It has to snap onto a certain location that is predetermined by the developers. And it's not really a big problem, but it kind of limits your freedom as to whatever you want to do with your own hideout. You don't get the sense that it's really yours. It's kind of like being lent to you or borrowed to you by the developers, which is not something you want to see in a realistic game, especially a strategy game where you're trying to strategically place certain things. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my full in-depth review about the game. There may be a few points that I missed here and there, but that's natural because I didn't write anything down. I'm doing this from memory after playing the game. There are a few things that they could have improved or changed on or added upon to make the game exceptional, but the game is still very, very good. I mean, it is something I would recommend. If you're somebody who likes survival games such as The Forest or The Last of Us, or you like strategy games or puzzle games like Limbo or Valiant Hearts, then this is something you have to go for. It is not that expensive, it is a pretty cheap game considering that it's a very well made game. So I would suggest that you check it out. I'll put a link in the description where you can buy the game for cheaper if you use my G2A code, if you want to save yourself a bit of money. But even if you don't, the game is actually only like 14 or 15 pounds, which is very affordable, and I would highly recommend that you check it out. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below, have you checked this game out? Did you know about this game? Let me know what you think about the video. Do you agree or disagree? Have you played the game yourself? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you have any ideas or features that you have that would be great in the game if they're implemented? Let me know all of that in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like. If you didn't enjoy the video, leave it a dislike. That's perfectly acceptable. And if you're somebody who loves video game reviews, then you'll be pleased to know that I'm going to bring a lot more of those in the future. Check out the playlist where I made all the other review videos for all the other games that I've played. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, this is Sniper474, and I'm out. I'll see you on the